we had an affinity towards nonprofit work, but what really, got us over the fence was talking to real organizations and having them tell us that fundraising was difficult and diversifying their fundraising channels was a long-term strategy that they wanted to pursue.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever you may be listening. This is Latitude, the 43 North podcast. This week's podcast is brought to you by Key Bank. I'm Nate Benson, Digital Media Manager and host of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast and the previous weeks and, pretty much all the podcasts. I'm happy that you've listened to all of them. And thank you to those who have left a rating and comment on iTunes. If you like the podcast and haven't already, please head over to iTunes and leave a review. The more reviews we have, the more ears this podcast will play through, which is what we want. On this week's episode, we talk with Sanni. Sue is the co-founder of 2016 43 North winning team, We Did It. We Did It created a platform for nonprofits to gather donor data and help NPOs raise money. Sue is also a former D1 athlete, investment banker, and first-generation immigrant. But you know what? He tells his story way better than I do, so let's not waste another minute and get right into it.
Let's rock and roll.
Sue, how are you doing today?
We're doing great. I'm
right.
doing great.
Good. Give us the quick pitch of who you are, your company, and what you're doing.
Sure. So my name is Sanni. I am the CEO and one of the founders of We Did It, which is a software company that helps nonprofits raise money online. So over the last 5 years, we've worked with hundreds of nonprofits all around the country to do one thing, and that's make it easy for them to raise money online so that they can have the resources to pursue their charitable missions.
Nice noble cause, right?
Yeah, that's how it started out.
Walk us through your background a little bit, because it's a little more unique than the kind of the average startup story, in my opinion. Can kind of walk us through your first generation immigrant, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a first generation Nigerian. My mom and dad moved to the States in the 70s to pursue the American dream. And when I was growing up, one of the things that they really harped on in our household was education. So, I grew up looking at school and education as a pathway to creating the type of life that I knew my parents would be proud of. But I also grew up in New York City during the late 80s and early 90s, where it was a very, very rough city to grow up in. So my family, we lived in East New York, part of Brooklyn, which even to this day is still probably one of the roughest, most dangerous parts of New York City. But I was fortunate enough to get a lot of opportunities as a youngster to get out of the city and see the world outside of New York. And that's what really opened my eyes to entrepreneurship and small business and things that I couldn't necessarily get directly in my household or in my neighborhood.
What was it about your upbringing that inspired you? Once you got out of school, you mentioned education being very important. Once you got through that, though, because you could have gotten, just the 9-to-5 corporate job, most likely. Mm-hmm. What gave you that entrepreneurial spirit? What was it about your upbringing?
Well, I think I repeatedly saw things in my neighborhood as well as in my community that I didn't like, and I wanted to somehow make a change or do something to change people's lives. But specifically, I've had a couple of situations where I realized that what I was currently doing, be it working at a large corporation, I was at one point I was a banker working at a private investment bank, and I realized after talking to my parents that I wanted to do something that had an impact on people's lives that was a lot more tangible. So one of the stories was I was talking to my mother one day after like a long day of work, and at this point I was probably working easily 80 hours a week at this investment bank, but I was one of the youngest guys at the firm, and I was super proud of myself for being maybe 22, 23 years old, responsible for investing over $1 billion each day of the bank's money into other banks and other institutions, and just learning a ton about banking and finance. So at the time, I was very proud of myself and really happy about my professional path. But I had a conversation with my mom one day where she told me flat out that she didn't understand banking. She didn't understand all this industry jargon that I was throwing at her when I was describing what my day was like. But she did want to know, what was I doing all day at work that was actually making a difference in people's lives? You know, how did I help someone today?
In crickets, right? You're like, I don't know.
Yeah. Literally, she asked that question and the conversation was silent. And it was because I couldn't muster the words to describe what was I doing that was actually tangible for people. And, you know, perhaps I was just too far down the chain to really, you know, make the connection of what my day-to-day was like and how it affects some people's lives. But I think what I really took from that conversation was that I wasn't in a job or in a position where I could make an impact in the way that was valuable to me and my parents. And that meant a lot to me, since, you know, I want to be the type of son that my mom and dad could be proud of. But, you know, moreover, that led me down a path of really thinking more critically about what I do with my time. And since then, I pretty much made a vow to myself to only be involved in ventures and in opportunities that make an impact on people's lives.
You know, before we jump off the diving board to talking about We Did It, I don't want to overlook, you know, you were a D1 athlete as well. Did that help get you into college, get you through college? And how is that helping now through your startup life?
You know, the funny thing is that it actually didn't help me get in college. It damn for sure didn't help me stay in college. Anyone will tell you, if you're D1, you have a lot of challenges ahead of you while also trying to maintain an academic schedule. But for sure, playing collegiate sports at that high level prepared me for entrepreneurship, just from the simple fact of setting a goal that's very long term and being able to work day in, day out towards that goal. That was an experience that I had playing football at Boston College that I still think about today and feel like I'm almost built for entrepreneurship and small business in this way, where you know, I'm not afraid of delaying gratification for a bigger goal in the end. So because of that, it's easy for me to make plans that are months or years down the line and just work towards executing them. And I learned that from, you know, having two-a-days in practice and working towards trying to win a championship, you know, 9 months later. So those are some of the things that I gained from playing football at Boston College.
So We Did It. What is the nexus of We Did It? Tell me, you know, how you and Ben got together and created this startup.
Sure. So Ben Lamson is one of my co-founders right now, an extraordinary partner, salesperson, marketer. He's just an all-around, you know, great guy to start a business with. He actually was my sales manager. He was actually my former boss at a company called the Meltwater Group, where we first met. And at the Meltwater Group, Ben and I pretty much had a knack for selling to the nonprofit space. I think we're passionate about that type of work, but as salespeople, we seem to be good at selling into these type of organizations. And
my impression of Ben is he could sell water to an aquarium. He is very good at selling. He's a great pitch guy and a great sale guy.
Absolutely. In fact, I've seen Ben, you know, sell things that could not be sold by the average human being. But, you know, he's a very enthusiastic and charismatic person. And I think most people like being around those type of personalities. Moreover, when Ben sees something that he really believes in and that he's passionate about, no one or nothing can really deter him. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that was something that I wanted to be around as much as possible. So although we were working at this other company, we had numerous opportunities to learn more about the nonprofit world, because a lot of our customers were large nonprofit organizations. And as we dug in deeper, talking to our current customers at this company, we learned across the board that fundraising online was nearly impossible. This is back in 2010, right? 2010, 2011, when we first started thinking about this idea. For a lot of the nonprofits that we had worked with at the Meltwater Group, some of the likes of like the Boy Scouts of America, UNICEF.
Small organizations,
yeah, the tiniest of nonprofits in the country. But no, even for these organizations that have tons of resources, huge brand names. Doing things like crowdfunding was still foreign to them at the time. And, if anyone remembers, this is back when Kickstarter was an itty bitty baby.
Yeah.
And I remember the largest fundraising campaign at Kickstarter at this time was only $200,000. So crowdfunding in general was still very new and maybe even taboo in the nonprofit world. Nonetheless, Ben and I, we picked the brains of our customers at the Meltwater Group, and we just try to get a sense of why was it so difficult or foreign for them to pursue this style of fundraising, which seemed to be, a godsend for artists and creatives who were using Kickstarter and Indiegogo to raise money. And it just turned out that, this style of online fundraising was difficult to execute if you weren't really familiar with the process.
Yeah.
Moreover, a lot of people just want to have some help or some hand-holding when going through something that's new. So long story short, some of the customers at our company actually gave us the confidence to build a product on our own because they agreed to pay us if we were to build it. It was literally the if you build it, they will come type of scenario. So that gave me and Ben the bright idea or the light bulb moment where we figured that if we could build something, these people will pay us. Maybe there could be a business out of this.
And backing up just a little bit, how did you guys determine that it was the nonprofit space that needed so much help? Obviously with your work at the investment firm, you're dealing with a lot of corporations, a lot of money, this and that. Why was it that you guys were able to hone in on nonprofits as kind of the industry that was most vulnerable?
Yeah, well, I think there were two things that were a part of our decision-making process. The first was both Ben and I had benefited from nonprofit work. I grew up in New York City and had an amazing experience going through the Boys Club of New York, which is a nonprofit organization there that provides constructive opportunities for young men to explore the city or explore new avenues of life. And instead of staying on the streets and doing, whatever, you could go to the Boys Club, get help after school for homework, participate in sports, get mentored, and, have more constructive things to do. So I knew I wanted to do something that gave back in the same way that the Boys Club gave to me, but I wasn't yet sure. And I think Ben has had the similar experience with wrestling in his life. Ultimately, we had an affinity towards nonprofit work, but what really, got us over the fence was talking to real organizations and having them tell us that, that fundraising was difficult and diversifying their fundraising channels was a long-term strategy that they wanted to pursue. But, crowdfunding, as exciting as it wasn't as accessible as it may appear. And that's where we thought that, this little niche of fundraising online or in crowdfunding could be where we could make our stamp.
So did you guys determine that you wanted to start a company together first, or did you identify a problem first and then kind of mutually agreed to start the company?
We identified a problem first and tried to solve that. In fact, the Boys Club of New York, they were running an alumni fundraising campaign, and I participated in that campaign and attempted to crowdfund my share of my contribution back to the Boys Club. And during that process, I actually lived through the problems that the Boys Club had in terms of fundraising online. But I was successful at using, not Kickstarter, using Indiegogo or Rocket Hub to raise money for the Boys Club. And that was, part of the proof that I had to demonstrate that crowdfunding can work even for charitable organizations. So it was a little bit like fitting a round peg through a square hole, since those crowdfunding sites were more geared towards products or artistic projects. Nonetheless, I was able to raise money for an organization that I cared about. So, after going through that and solving my own problem, I just felt like there's got to be a way for me to build a product that does this specifically for the nonprofit customer or the nonprofit sector.
So let's say I have a nonprofit, and for the sake of argument, we'll call it Gavigan's Kids. We'll he's not in the room anymore, so that joke's not as funny as I thought it would be. But a nonprofit comes to you guys and says, "I'm struggling fundraising. What does we did as platform provide us?"
Sure. So, what our platform provides is a suite of fundraising tools that make it easy for that nonprofit to raise money in campaigns, as well as through their website through passive donations. Our platform also provides donor prospecting, which is a research methodology in the nonprofit world of investigating who your donors are or who your prospects are, and pinpointing, what their financial capacity to give is. Mm-hmm. Usually, this type of research is done at very large institutions who have a lot of money and a lot of resources to really dig into the weeds of your finances or whatever data they can find on you. But what we did is done to innovate in this sector is to automate that type of research and make it an integrated part of our platform. So with any new donation that comes in, we automatically research who that donor is, and we tell that nonprofit, is this person maybe open to a larger gift size or maybe a specific type of program that you have based off of their interest.
If I understand a little bit about the industry, traditionally those are two separate services that would be provided to a nonprofit, especially a large one, the donor side of it and then the donor data, correct?
Absolutely. In fact, for any of the listeners or yourself, you might have been hit up by your college alma mater to donate.
The day after, usually.
Yeah. Usually before you finish paying off your student loans, they'll still hit you up. But even at colleges and universities, they'll have two separate teams, the development team and the advancement team. And advancement focuses on research and data gathering, information gathering, and development focuses on leveraging that research to solicit you for a donation. Usually these departments are separated, but what we're doing in our product is combining them, since most nonprofits aren't structured like a university, nor do they have the resources a university would. So overall, we pack a whole suite of tools that make fundraising affordable but effective online. And then we give our clients a roadmap for how they can use these tools over the course of a year to raise money towards their fundraising goals.
Is there kind of a model nonprofit in terms of like their size, organization, that would benefit the most from the We Did It platform, or is it really the smallest of organizations all the way up to large scale ones?
It's really the smallest of organizations all the way up to, even some of the biggest customers we have an annual budget of $300-400 million a year. So that definitely represents the top 5% of the nonprofit industry. Nonetheless, our platform is completely scalable. So whether you are a one-woman show, and a nonprofit where you're running the entire organization by yourself, we do have a pricing plan and a strategy to help even you get off the ground with an online fundraising, methodology that actually works. But then we work with large organizations too who have very extensive teams with multiple team members handling online giving and donor research and major gift giving and every aspect of fundraising. We have a framework for working with those types of nonprofits too. So all in all, I think the one common denominator is that if the organization is focused on individual giving, raising money from individual people, then that would mean that they're probably a great fit for our solution.
So you've been in Buffalo 7 months. You were a 2016 winner, 43 North, and it's now July, so you're just past the halfway mark of the year. How's the experience in Buffalo been? It's been
great. I have to admit that when we first moved here to Buffalo during the wintertime, it wasn't as great.
And it was a mild winter too.
You guys call that mild?
It's very mild.
Wow. I got to get tougher then. No, I joke about it a bit, but we moved up here in January, and the first 2 or 3 months were rough, mostly because it's winter and it's cold, and it's harder to get outside of your apartment or the office to meet new people and to really enjoy the city for all it has to bring. But as the weather got warmer and we're able to get out of the office more, we've really come to love Buffalo and enjoy everything that the 43 North program provides, as well as what the city can provide newcomers like me, Ben, and my team. So I've had a lot of great experiences here already, like going to Canal Side and actually hanging out with some of the board members of 43 North, and having them introduce us to people. So although we've moved here and we're really, completely new to the city, it didn't feel like we were alone at all. And I think that helps when trying to build a new ecosystem and having newcomers, people from outside of the city, move here, giving them a way to feel integrated into the community as soon as possible can dramatically change your experience.
So we're in the semifinalists round of this year's competition, and I'm sure you remember that very fondly from last summer. Walk us through so we can send this out to those semifinalists. What they should be doing to prep. For some people, this might be their first big pitch. Others, this might be their 10th big pitch. Talk about how you prepared for it and why you think you found success.
Well, when I think back about how I prepared, one of the things that I think really helped me was remembering that this was a competition that had multiple rounds of judging and assessment. So my goal in starting the application process and then proceeding through the competition was first to just make it to the next round and therefore focus on that specific goal ahead of me, not winning $1 million, right? Because I would only get that opportunity if I made it to the finals. But, back in, maybe March or April when you're applying, my first objective was to give as much clear information about my business and this idea that we have and what our trajectory was during the application process. Then, the process proceeds with a series of pitches that you'll do virtually to the 43 North team and their group of partner judges or advisors. And, at that stage of the game, again, you're really just trying to focus, or at least I was trying to focus on delivering the best pitch and the best presentation of our company that I possibly could at that time. So, I thought about who would be in the room when I was pitching virtually over the computer, and I tried to use examples that I thought might resonate with some of those people. You might have to guess here and there, but for the most part, these are people who are going to be business owners. They may be angel or venture capital investors, and then they're going to be staff members of 43 North. So these are professionals. Therefore, if you are going to pitch, you're going to want to speak to that audience, let alone talk about your business in a way that really clarifies what you're trying to accomplish and what problem you're solving.
Was there a moment, when you're preparing for the pitches that you felt, I'm over-preparing for something like this, or I'm overthinking all of this?
No, not at all, really. I don't think you can really over-prepare. I because I've played sports and have that perspective on preparation, I think any number of repetitions in doing your pitch or trying to simulate the environment you're going to be in when you actually do pitch your company to 43 North or whatever group of judges can only help you, because it makes you comfortable with the content, makes you comfortable with your own cadence and speaking in front of people. So I never felt like I over-prepared. But I would say, though, that it's great to pitch in front of people who can give you constructive feedback and can help you tailor your presentation towards something that is going to be engaging. We probably have the propensity to gloss over details that we think are mundane, but other people may not get the first time around. So really getting feedback on your pitching before you go through this process can really help you identify those aspects of your pitch that maybe need a little bit more finer tuning. So, I practiced several times with my girlfriend, with my co-founders, Ben and Brian, in the mirror, recording myself. I tried to do as much as I can to prepare. But yeah, to me in this situation, there's no over preparing. I think it's just all a part of the game.
For the folks who are in the semifinals now and all the way down to finalists eventually, how much of an impact did winning 43 North have on We Did It in terms of advancing them to kind of that next level of being a startup?
It was, if I could quantify the impact, well, that's even hard. That's hard to do itself. Well, I'll put it like this. Before getting into 43 North and winning $500,000, anytime we had raised money for our startup, we would do the whole fundraising song and dance with investors, angel investors, and VCs. And honestly, it was very difficult because we weren't the most sexiest startup, right? We're working in the nonprofit sector. We're working with organizations that aren't seen to be, really quick moving in terms of decision making, not very tech savvy or tech forward. So, these types of things don't immediately get investors to really perk up. So I think that made it difficult for us to raise money quickly over the years. However, we were able to raise, I think maybe, several $100,000 before 43 North, but it was all in tranches, like in little bite-sized bits over the course of 3+ years. So we never really had the chance to take in a large sum of money and then really think long-term about how we were going to use this money to advance and propel our business forward. And 43 North gave us that opportunity to really think, what is We Did It going to be 12 or 18 months down the line? And how do we actually position our product and our service to get to that future that may be, a year or a year and a half in the future? So, that was a great benefit of winning the competition, is having that capital to think strategically about your business. And I think the next best thing to the cash was all the mentorship and advice that we're getting from 43 North's network of experts. Since we've moved up here, we've been connected to a data scientist, a machine learning expert, as well as a senior engineer at Facebook who has a world of experience in terms of user experience and building products that can scale, as well as products that people love. And, we are having an amazing time working with these guys who are really helping us build the next generation of our platform. So, these are part of the things that money can't provide. But when it does come to the things that money can do for you, you do get a big tranche of money coming out of the 43 North program. So overall, it's been an amazing experience for us.
So wrapping things up, to that point, what's next on the horizon for the We Did It team?
World domination. No, for us, we want to bring on as many nonprofits as possible. So, internally, we have a goal of bringing on a couple more thousand organizations over the next 24 months. And we've actually pinpointed a specific strategy for doing that. And we've been executing that since we got into the 43 North program, where we're working with foundations and larger nonprofits who have, let's say, like a pool of clientele or connections to other nonprofits. So long story short, we've been able to position ourselves as a true resource to the types of organizations or associations that also benefit nonprofits. And through that, we're able to reach a larger number of organizations and make a much bigger impact. So, we're excited about the future and think that we have the winning team, strategy, and resources around us to finally execute. So, up and away.
All right. Well, Ben, or Sue, I almost called you Ben. I did call you Ben. I apologize. Sue, thank you so much for joining us this week. We'll check in with you guys before the end of the year, and look forward to seeing how you guys grow.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Nate. I really appreciate what you're doing, and I hope all the listeners here took some words of wisdom and hopefully will avoid some of the mistakes I've made in the past. But overall, 43 North is an amazing program, and we encourage everyone to apply and to do your best.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Nate.
Isn't Sue great? He's really just a positive person and passionate about his mission with We Did It. And if you want to learn more about We Did It, visit their website, wedid.it. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, and please take a moment to leave a review on iTunes and share it on your social media channels. And if you have an idea for the show, you can send us an email at podcast@43north.org. Next week on the podcast, we have Janae Pitts, co-founder of 110 Capital, a VC firm in Buffalo that's focused on hardware startups.
I think now what we need to focus on as a group of venture capital parties is more collaboration in terms of understanding what stage and what type of company each of us is looking at, how we can pass one to the next, and it's going to be that kind of structure that helps us attract money from the outside.
Thanks again for listening. I'm Nate Benson, and we'll see you at the next one.